Now for what I like to call the boring stuff, but important stuff. But before we get started, I am not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. I'm just a helping hand to provide you some information to make it a little bit easier for you to find out what these words mean, what options might be right for you, and to start a conversation with a professional with a little bit more insight than you would have before the start of this video. You might have heard of a sole proprietor, a partnership, a corporation, limited partnership, a B Corp, a nonprofit. These are all different structures used by the government to keep track of what business and project and nonprofit activities are happening locally and across Canada. But picking the one that is right for you and your business is also an important decision when you're getting started. If you are considering registering your business and you have a business name that you want to work and sell under, then sole proprietor is often the best option for most Yukoners. What you get when you register as a sole proprietor is you're claiming that name. So that means that your business name, the one you've worked so hard to pick, is going to be yours. So that means that if you start working under that name and you're not registered, someone else could register that name and tell you to stop using that name. So you want to make sure that if you're using a name and you're selling products and services, that that name will remain yours. So registering is a great thing to do. As a sole proprietor, you can actually open up a business bank account under the name of your business that you've registered. So that if people are signing checks or they're paying you, you're going to be able to cash those checks under the business name. It's also a great option if you want to keep that bank account separate from your personal account. That being said, as a sole proprietor, a great advantage and another reason why it's a great option for folks who are just getting started is that you can use your own bank account as a sole proprietor as your main business bank account. So it's quick, easy, affordable. Sole proprietor, great option for most folks. A reason why a sole proprietor would not be a good option for you is if, number one, you're an artist and you use your own name. If you do use your own name, you don't actually have to register a sole proprietor. The difference is as soon as you start using your name and a word that is not part of your given name, that's when you want to register as a sole proprietor. There would be nothing worse than getting a check after a big gig or a big job and not being able to cash it. So make sure if you're not registering as a sole proprietor, you're being paid under your own name as self-employed, but you're really using your given name. Another reason why you wouldn't want to be a sole proprietor is if you feel there is a risk that you could be sued by your employees or by your customers. So an example of a little bit of a riskier business could be trades, could be daycare, right? And the reason why a sole proprietor or a partnership won't be the best option for you is because of what's called limited liability. Now we'll get to that in a moment when we talk about corporations. So a partnership registered locally is very similar to a sole proprietor. The only difference is a sole proprietor is for one person, one owner, whereas a partnership means that there are many owners that are a part of the business. So if you're more than one person, partnership is a great option. Now, the second option for partnerships is a limited partnership. So what that limited partnership means is there might be one person who's running the business. It's really their business, their bread and butter. Whereas the other person, they're just giving money to the business. They might be an investor or someone who cares, and they're the ones who are supporting the business financially, but they don't have any responsibility or ties other than financial. The choice to incorporate can be for someone who is a solo founder, or for partners. It can be for any kind of business. But the reason why you would choose to incorporate is often different than the reasons why you would register. If you're choosing to incorporate, it's because you want that limited liability. So if a sole proprietor is the person and the business seen as one in the eyes of the government, when you incorporate, you create a new entity. That means that you as a founder are being paid through the business, perhaps as an employee or as through dividends, but the business becomes almost a person of its own. And so it's going to pay taxes on its own. And you're also going to pay your personal taxes. But when you're a sole proprietor, you pay those together. So you see how those separate? That separation can also create limited liability. which means that in the case of debts being incurred from the business, it is separate from your own personal finances, which means that if the business were to go bankrupt, it wouldn't mean necessarily that you yourself would go bankrupt. If the business would be sued, it wouldn't mean that you personally would be sued. So it's creating that distance, that limited liability, that is often the decision maker for business owners to choose to incorporate rather than to be a sole proprietor. So another reason why you might want to incorporate is if you think investment is part of your journey as an entrepreneur. This is very common for startups, folks that know that they need a lot of cash in the beginning of their journey in order to create a new product, test, expand, market. So if you think that getting investment, whether from an angel investor or from a venture capitalist, is truly part of your business plan, then incorporating early on could be a really good option for you as well. The reasons why the incorporation is not the best option for everyone is that when you incorporate, it is best to do so with a lawyer or an accountant. It can be costly. It can cost a few $1,000s on average to register through a lawyer. When you're registering with an accountant, they typically say that you're at the point where it'll be worth it for you to incorporate if you're making around $80,000 a year or more. That's when you'll get to see the tax benefits that are more associated with incorporating versus just registering a sole proprietor. And lastly, if you are opening up a business bank account for a sole proprietor, that's a choice you can make. But if you are incorporated, you have to open up a separate bank account. That can also mean that they will do credit checks on you as well. So incorporating is a great option for business owners, but it's not the only one. So speak to a lawyer or an accountant to see what benefits you have with every option and to make sure that you are truly making the best decision for yourself.